So that's module 13, and that leads us on to module 14, which is a related question: how can miracles happen? And again, like the resurrection, we can say, well, why is the resurrection important? And we've seen it's absolutely central to Christianity. But why are miracles important? Well, similarly, the Bible is full of miracles. And right from the miracles of creation in Genesis chapter 1 and 2, right through to the miracles of the new heaven and the new earth, but particularly the miracles of Jesus and the miracles of the 12 apostles that they performed, the miracles of healing that they performed, and acts of power. But we see all the way through the Old Testament too, not continually, but at certain times, and especially around key prophets, people like Moses, of course, the plagues of Egypt, or for example, Elijah and the defeat of the prophets of Baal. There were miracles there. Of course, there was the miraculous element in the life of Daniel too, with his interpretations of dreams. That the Bible is full of miracles, and we see all the way through the Bible God working in ways that are quite extraordinary. Secondly, because Jesus and the apostles performed miracles, and if miracles didn't happen, then they didn't authenticate then the lives and the teaching of Jesus and the apostles. The miracles were acts of power which demonstrated the truth of the gospel. And we know that the miracles broke down barriers of unbelief, that many people put their faith in Jesus because of the miracles they witnessed. Many people stopped to listen to the gospel when the apostles preached because of the miracles that the apostles performed. So Jesus and the apostles performed miracles. Miracles are a key proof of Jesus's divinity as well. And we know this from the Old Testament, which prophesied that with the coming of the Messiah, the blind would see, the deaf would hear, the lame would walk, the mute would speak. That we expect these things, and they point to Jesus being much, much more than a man, more than a prophet. And in fact, the authority of the Bible is at stake, because if miracles did not happen or cannot happen, then there's so much of the Bible that we can simply not believe or can dismiss. So miracles are incredibly important. So it's an important question that we need to ask. And of course, as we've seen, the resurrection is a miracle. In fact, the incarnation is perhaps an even greater miracle. So right at the heart of the Christian faith, God becoming a man, dying on a cross, rising from the dead. Miracles are absolutely important. So the supernatural cannot be separated from Christianity. Now, at this point, I would, if we had a little bit more time, there's another exercise I want you to do later. So I'm not going to give you this one now. But when you're teaching this, again, you can, if you're doing it online, then put people into small groups and give them 5 minutes or so to talk about the question, how can miracles happen? And then bring them back, get feedback, and then go on with the teaching. Or alternatively, if you're teaching them in a classroom or a lecture theatre or a church hall or something, then you can put them into small groups in a real sense and then get them to feedback. But always think about ways in which you can engage them, because it helps them to remember better what you're teaching. So if we think about the question, how can miracles happen? I think a good way of doing it is to think, well, what are the objections to miracles happening? What arguments do people bring to prove that miracles can't happen? Because that's really what we've got to address. And I'd suggest there's 4 main reasons that people bring. And the first one is back to the evidence again. They say, well, there's no evidence that miracles happened. There's no evidence. And you come back to the eyewitness evidence again. And here, what you have to do is just point out the evidence for selected biblical miracles, and point out particularly that many of them convinced hardened skeptics who did not believe that Jesus was the Messiah. Remember the high priest saying, look, after the raising of Lazarus from the dead, saying, look, if he carries on like this, everyone's going to believe in him. But they did not believe that Jesus was the Messiah. They didn't believe he was doing this by God's power, they attributed it to the devil's power. But no one could deny that the miracles were happening. In the same way with Peter and John healing the man at the beautiful gate, they said no one can deny that these people have performed an astounding miracle, because everyone knew this beggar at the temple gate. Everyone in Jerusalem had walked past him and seen him there. He was probably the best known person in the whole of Jerusalem. And then suddenly there he was no more, but he's jumping and walking around and walking and leaping and praising God. So eyewitness evidence convinced hardened skeptics, even people who had strong vested interests in not believing in the miracles. And so we point back here to saying, well, look, these people, they may have lived 2,000 years ago, but just like you and me, even without the benefits of science, they know that blind people cannot see, that deaf people cannot hear, that lame people cannot walk. So it was strong eyewitness evidence that's been passed down. The second objection people will give is they say, oh, there are natural explanations for what happened, you know, like say Sodom was destroyed by a volcano, or the Red Sea parted because of a strong wind. Well, we know the Bible says it was actually a strong wind that God sent, or the Jordan River dried up so Joshua could cross because of a landslide. And the implication is that if a reasonable natural explanation can be found, then there are no grounds for claiming that God was the cause. They'll even try and explain away the miracles in the Gospels. So the feeding of the 5,000, well, it was just a miracle of sharing. Everyone brought out their lunch boxes when they saw the little boy was willing to share. Well, how do we answer this? Well, first of all, we've got to say that because we can find a natural explanation for some event, it does not mean that God was not involved, because the God of the Bible is the sustainer of the universe. He covers the sky with clouds, he separates, so he supplies the earth with rain, he makes the grass grow, he sends the snow, frost, hail and breezes, he installs kings and removes them, he even determines the throw of the dice. He works in and through natural events. In fact, natural events are part of his providence. But more than that, many miracles cannot be explained naturally. They just cannot. I mean, how does a stick turn into a snake when Moses throws it to the ground? How does an axe head float when Elisha throws a stick into the River Jordan? How does congenital blindness in an instant get healed? These things defy any natural explanation. So there are simply not natural explanations for a lot of them. Then people will tell you, well, miracles didn't happen because miracles can't happen because they're against the laws of science. But if we think about scientific theories are not prescriptive but descriptive. What I mean by that is that they don't prescribe or determine how things must happen, but they describe what actually does happen. And so they describe how nature has behaved in the past as a basis for predicting how it will behave in the future. And because of this, no scientific theory is carved in letters of stone, because each one can be knocked down by a single fact disproved. You think even scientific theories like Newton's laws of motion did not describe how very small particles moving close to the speed of light behaved. And so we needed a more accurate theory, the theory of relativity, from Einstein to help to explain that. And of course, that doesn't explain all natural phenomena either. So all scientific theories are just an approximation to the truth. They don't determine what must happen. They describe what does happen. And a true scientist is someone who changes his theory to fit the observed fact. So if a fact comes along that doesn't fit the theory, then a true scientist will think, okay, maybe I don't understand the universe in the way I thought I did. Maybe this theory is not universal and I need to adapt it. And so if confronted by a true miracle with good eyewitness evidence, then a true scientist is going to say, well, maybe there's something about the universe I don't understand. Maybe there might even be a God. And then the final thing is, a lot of people will say, well, I've never seen a miracle, so I don't believe that they can happen. But we know that we all believe many things on the basis of compelling testimony or authority. So much of the medicine we learn is because we're told it by authorities, or it's based on other people's testimonies. We believe in history, not because we were there witnessing it, but because other people did and wrote it down. So that's a nonsense objection. And again, if you're talking about miracles, it will lead on to other questions. So it'll lead on to this question, well, how do we know what was written down was really true? And we're going to come back to that one. Is the Bible reliable? Is another big question in apologetics that we will return to. But then again, it comes back to this question of, was Jesus God or not? Because if you can, the real reason people fail to believe the biblical reports of miracles is because they fail to believe in God himself. Because once you believe in an all-powerful being who created the universe and sustains it, and miracles, you see, cease to be a problem. Once you believe that God could become a man, then such issues as the virgin birth, the healing miracles of Jesus and the apostles, and the resurrection itself even just pale into insignificance, because God can do anything he likes, whenever he likes, at any time he likes. So that's modules 13 and 14, the resurrection and miracles, whether they're possible or not.